Hi, everybody. It's Susie McCray, and welcome to the Susie Show at SusieMcCray.com. And boy, do I have a special guest today. As you know, on the Susie Show, I love to interview people who are doing something that they love to do, and that is adding value back to others. So when I started the Susie Show, my dad immediately said to me, "You have to talk to Jim Spencer, and you're probably going to want to do quite a few interviews with him." So we're here today at the Northampton Senior Center, and my dad, who's 90, is part of the Senior Center. He comes here. He actually goes to other places, to logic classes, and he attends creative writing. And he met Jim. And Jim, a lot of people in this area know him as Santa Claus. He kind of has that nickname. So I never thought I'd be interviewing Santa Claus, but boy, it's my lucky day. So anyway, Jim has quite a lot of stories to tell from what my dad said, but we're going to talk a little bit today about what makes him special and what he does that he loves. So without further ado, Jim, tell us about yourself and a little bit of your background.
Well, let's see. I'm a Northampton native, born and raised in Northampton, Florence.
Mm-hmm.
In about 1967, I joined the Air Force. Actually, 65. I'm sorry. 1965, joined the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
Played in the Air Force for 21 years.
Wow.
Okay.
Played in the Air Force.
So, I was a combat intelligence. I was a photographic interpreter. I was a photographic analyst. I was a Korean expert. I was an Afghanistan expert when the Russians had invaded Afghanistan.
Wow.
Then I went to Hawaii, and I was a senior analyst for the eastern part of the world. Did a lot of work with that. Did a lot of work with JPAC, which is the people that search for POWs that are dead, and we could find them. We've done that for years.
That must have been quite invigorating work.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It
Wow.
was.
Rewarding.
And the fellow that I worked with in that, he's just retired. He did it after he got out of the service. Anyways, but it was quite the job. Let's put it that way. It was interesting.
Rewarding in some aspects, but probably very heart-wrenching at times too.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. It was heart-wrenching when you found a wedding ring or something like that, and then you brought the wedding ring back to the wife and blah blah blah. And that's kind of a nice thing, you know. They found remains, not me anymore. They found remains back like as late as last year. Okay, that we're still picking up people from Laos.
You're kidding?
No.
I think I saw something in the paper about that. They did bring someone home that they found like in a water area.
My friend was the guy who actually found the wedding ring in the water.
Oh wow!
So yeah.
Oh, it gives me goosebumps.
Yes. So I did that. Mostly I was an aircraft analyst and I was a weapons analyst, looking for new types of weapons and new types of beam deployment.
So you were like really everywhere.
Yes.
Did you enjoy that travel?
Immensely.
Yeah.
Immensely. You know, I didn't have to wear a uniform a lot, so it was a lot of times we didn't have to do that. A lot of times we were working 25, 35, 40 hours straight without a break. You'd sleep under what we call a light table with that. So,
a light table?
Yeah, it's a light table, and you put film on it, and you can see up through it. And that was like, the person would take the image, take the picture, we'd process it. We had film then. We didn't have all this digital stuff.
Right.
We had film, they process it. I would sit at the end of the processor and look at it as it came out, and there was a light underneath it, probably 500-600 watts. And you'd be looking at this film with this bright light underneath it, and you'd analyze SAM sites and weapons and truck carting. And then we'd call in an airstrike right then. You know, we'd be able to say, hey, we got a truck on blah, 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 and they call in the airstrike and we go down.
I bet things have changed since then.
Yes.
The technology.
Well, first off, you don't have to call it in anymore. You push the button and the computer does all that for you.
Yeah.
So, this is pre any kind of drones. We just, we'd call the guy up and say, who's there going to call? Here's a strike point for you. So the guy would run out, jump in his airplane, and go do that.
Wow.
So, and a lot of times we'd run out to the airplane with new updated coordinates for him.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right before.
Right before he left, they'd be on the hot pot, and I'd be handing it up through the window to the airplane.
Jeez, wow.
So yeah, we did that kind of stuff.
And you traveled around, and then I'm sure we're going to have Jim back on and talk about his military career, which I find fascinating. And thank you so much for your service to our country. I mean, it's amazing what you've done for our country, and I really have utmost respect for our veterans. And as some people know, I do work with Seven Eagle Group, where we connect employers with talented military veterans. But so now, not that I want to jump ahead or whatever, but tell us what you love doing now, and how you found out that you love doing what you're doing now.
Okay.
Okay.
This takes a little bit of belief.
Okay, we have belief.
We have belief.
On the Susie Show.
Okay.
Anything's possible.
Well, I had failed all my English courses through high school and college.
Did you sit in the back of the class?
Yes, I got thrown out of most of them.
Doesn't make him a bad person.
No, usually a sleeping person. Yes, but anyway, in 2001, I had a massive heart attack.
Ooh.
Okay, quadruple bypass the day after I went to the doctor. Well, the first time we were in this huge drug-induced coma type thing, right? Mm-hmm. Not close to coma, I was out of it. And this dragon comes up in the sky and said, "Jim, you should write."
It wasn't Puff the Magic Dragon.
No.
It was like you really saw a dragon.
Yes. Well,
it wasn't a nurse.
No. Nurse was much nicer than a dragon.
Okay. Yeah, no digs against nurses.
The dragon came probably 3 or 4 nights in line with that. Okay. And I thought, okay, this is kind of stupid. Mm-hmm. Go away. Go away, dragon.
Is it the morphine?
I don't need it. Yeah. Something's bad, but I don't need it. Mm-hmm. So then the doctor had told me I had to stay home in bed for numerous days. Like, I think it was 90 or something. Well, mm-hmm. Jim was not a 90-day in bed person. Okay, the week I had the heart attack, I put 86 hours in the office the week before that. So going from 86 to 96 hours to 0 was like drove me nuts.
Yeah.
So in the
probably did more damage than the heart attack.
Yes, I think it did.
Yeah.
But anyways, in the first couple of days, I did video games, I did puzzles. I did,
all the
and
read the paper.
That's right. And about the 4th day, I believed that my wife was about to divorce because we'd been married like 30 years at that time, 35 years, and she was just like, So I said, well, let me write this thing. And an English teacher who I knew from before, mm-hmm. who was a friend of the family, came in to see how I was, and she said, you've been around the world and have all these experiences. Why don't you write a short story? So I did, and she thought it was really good. So
Is she a local person?
Yes.
Did she teach at the high school?
No.
No?
No. So she taught at Williston.
Okay.
So anyway, she said, hey, you can write.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, really? She said, yeah. So we sent a little bitty piece in about a little episode in Vietnam, and I won a contest. The very first thing I wrote, I won a contest.
Your first short story?
My first short story. So I said, okay, wow. This is kind of cool. So I took a couple of online classes so I could put commas in the right place. I still don't do that. But anyway,
I'm not the grammar police, so don't worry.
No, that's good.
Okay.
So we did that, and I wrote a book, and I did this book, and it was terrible. It really was. But I went to the Writer's Digest conference down in New York, uh-huh. and somebody there picked me up and said, gee, Jim, this is really, really good.
The bad book or?
The bad book. They thought
that you thought was bad.
No, everybody thought it was bad.
Oh, okay, not just you.
He said it was bad.
Oh,
but he said, we can fix this.
Oh.
So we started fixing it, and yet that was pretty good. And he asked me, he said, I like the way you write. He said, would you ghostwrite for me? So I said, sure. So I ghostwrote for him, and because of that, he did very, very well on a ghostwrite. But he had a big name. Okay, just didn't
Are you
have
allowed
the time.
to share?
No, I'm not. because that's
We have a secret on the Susie show. Jim won't.
if you
I might have
read,
to shake him to get it out.
if you read my books, you might see the same type of writing in somebody else's book and say, "Gee, this looks like Jim's writing." But I can't say anything because then I'll lose all the money that the man gave me, and we don't want to do that.
You know what we call this in part of my other team? We call this failing forward.
Yes, yes.
And
So,
sometimes you have to fail at something for an opportunity to move forward, and
Yes.
that is exactly what
that's
happened.
how my whole life's been failing forward.
Yeah, me
But-
too. And that's a good thing. That
It
means
is,
you.
it is, 'cause
That
I'm
means you
always
take
going
a leap
forward.
and you're
I'm-
always
that's
trying
right,
something.
I'm always going
yes.
forward.
Yes.
So that happened. Started writing the second book that I wrote, and he said, "You would write me another?" And I said, "No. If you made New York Times bestseller list on my book, then I can do this." So I said, "Okay." So I wrote my own book,
Okay.
and I had it edited, and the editing, I didn't pay attention to what the editor said a lot because I thought I was right, and I kind of messed it up a little bit. But I still sold an awful lot of copies and made a lot of money with this book.
Okay.
So I said, "Well, we'll make a second book." Well, the first book did really well and really well and really well. The second book is doing really well, really well. It's a full story. I have 12 books written, and they're going to be out every 8 months about, as we go along.
I didn't realize this
So
when my dad told me to talk to you. So you have quite a few books.
Yeah. And I have a monster fantasy that's coming out probably, its target date for Christmas.
A monster fantasy.
Is
that going back to the dragon that appeared to you?
Yes, it's about this big, and it's probably about 120,000 words, when your average book is about 60,000. So it's going to be,
Double.
the double size of a book.
Okay, so let's rewind a little because, wow, I'm blown away. I didn't realize you had done the ghostwriting and all that. My dad knows how to pick people to interview. So I'm full of questions now because I don't really prepare much for these interviews. We just talk and let it happen. So when you first wrote the first bad book,
Mm-hmm.
did you enjoy writing the
Yes.
first bad book?
Loved
What did you enjoy about it?
It brought me to a different place in the world. I could actually, how I write is I'm what they call a seat of the pants writer. I don't detail a outline.
Okay.
So I sort of say, here's this and here's this and here's this. What I say to people, I say I take my characters and throw them in the deep end of the pool and let them swim out.
Oh, now that's a neat analogy.
Because sometimes what I have planned for the book doesn't work because of what the character decides to do. I let my characters decide where the book goes.
Now that is interesting.
So the characters sort of go along with where the book goes, and it sort of evolves, and I have questions, and I think about it, and what ifs, and I ask myself that, what if this happened? What if this happened? What if this happens? And that gives me the best of 5 choices. I say, this is the coolest happening, so we'll pick this one.
Oh my goodness.
And then we move that one. So then from there, that what if leads to 2 or 3 answers, and then, well, what if? And then this goes down 2 or 3 answers more, and then 2 or 3 answers more. And pretty soon, I have this huge book. And then I have to go back and connect all the what ifs to make sure that they flow. And okay, I got to put this section here so it makes sense. So it's actually, I do more work with the rewrite than
like the pieces of the puzzles and moving them around.
Yes.
So that is really amazing that's how you do it, because you always hear like people do these major outlines and plan everything.
Everything works for the individual. Some people don't like my system. Other people love outlines. I tell every one of my people in the writing class, write what works for you.
Okay.
Like some people say, write for an hour every day between 10 and 11. I'm too busy to do every day at 10 to 11.
Yeah.
Now, I may skip 3 days, but then I may write for 3 days straight.
So you don't really put like any boundaries or parameters on it. You just
Nope.
you just right from the heart. And
I turned 65 and said there's no more parameters on my life.
Hey, that's a good motto to live by. So do you type or do you handwrite?
I speak into the computer.
Dragon?
Yep.
Oh, he's
I
got
like dragon.
Now, this dragon theme is going in and out.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And this is really cool because if I run into, this is where you have to believe. If I run into a real bad problem, it's not. I don't call it writer's block. I got three choices. Which one works? And I think about it before I go to bed. The dragon comes to me in my sleep and gives me the hint. Go this way. So yeah.
This is like amazing. The dragon comes to you.
Yep. Constantly.
So now you've got all these books going on.
Mm-hmm.
You probably live, and I don't mean this in a bad way, a very simple, unassuming life.
No, I live a very high-end life.
He lives a high-end life. Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about that.
I
Okay,
eat
here
good
we go.
food. I eat good food.
Okay.
I drink good scotch. I travel all over the world for fun now, not for work. Okay, so life is good with Jim.
Life is good with Jim. See, you can't judge a book by its cover. Would
No.
you look at Jim and say he's this fabulous writer doing everything he wants to do? So
I drive a 20-year-old man's car. Okay.
Okay, so that's the simple part I
Yep.
was talking about. Lives in Florence. Was at the Elks last night. That's what I mean, Jim, about a simple life. But you do enjoy the good things that life has.
Yes, I enjoy life to the fullest.
Yes.
If it's not fun, I don't do it.
Mhm.
First off, and second off, if you could eat steak, if you could afford steak, and you don't have to eat hamburger, why not afford the steak? Because life is short.
Yeah, and I believe that too. A friend of mine's dad just passed away, and he had said, it's okay to have good things in life.
Yes.
I think a lot of times people go on a guilt trip or they feel like they have to do this, that, or the other, and they spend all their time being burdened by that instead of living in the moment and enjoying what they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe, and I'm just maybe going on a ledge here a little bit, first of all, you served during a really tumultuous time in the country. You probably had a lot of stress and pressure.
I laughed it off all the way
Okay,
through
well
the whole
that's
thing.
good. He's got it, and then you have the massive heart attack,
Yep.
and you see the dragon. But I think really, and this is just my thought as I think off the top of my head, that the things you're doing in life now, you're adding value back to others, and I think that is such a good feeling that it helps you enjoy life in the moments.
That's why I'm an elk, because that's what elks do.
Okay.
They just help other people. They're good people doing good things for the world and everybody. And I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm relatively new as an elk, and I'm becoming very, very active in it.
Mm-hmm.
I have, my class has been, my creative writing class has been going for 14 years.
14 years. That's the one that my dad attends,
Your
right?
dad is in.
And people probably love it.
And love it. And we have actually published, I think the number's up to 9 books out of that class. Okay, yeah. And to me, that's like pretty good. We have one lady who's almost 90, and she just finished her book last year. Okay, and her first book. Now this is, we have got some pretty cool people doing things that they never did before.
Uh-huh.
And I had one lady come up to me, probably 10 years ago. The man has passed away now. But she gave me this big hug, and she said, my husband used to stay in bed till 10 o'clock in the morning, get up, have coffee, read the paper, and lay around till lunchtime. Then he would take a nap, and then, have supper, and then go to bed after, After he came to 3 of my writing groups, he was up at 6 in the morning, and he was researching and writing his book till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. He would sit there and watch TV, go to sleep watching TV, but she had to force him to have lunch. He was so involved. And he almost finished the book before he passed away. So his son and I are working to finish the book.
Oh, what a great story. I mean, he had a purpose.
Yeah, that's it. He woke up and he had something to do that he loved.
And I think that really rings true with the ways I've done some changes in my life too and got out of like stressful situations, not really a good fit. And I tell people, I said, I get up at 3 in the morning to do an interview if someone wants to do an interview.
Yep.
Because, I mean, I really love doing this, sitting in, you know, there's so many people out there that are doing something they love to do in life. And I was always kind of envious of that. But now I'm living it. You know, and you must live that every day.
Every minute of every day.
I can't. You've just inspired me to think about maybe I could write a book.
Everybody has a book in them.
They all have a story.
I'm a big believer. Everybody has a story. Not everybody can take their story and put it on paper.
Okay.
That's what I do. I help them transform their ideas, and here's how to write it. Here's how. And I don't want everybody to write like me. I want them their style, but I find a style that fits for them and works with them, and we push it. Your dad is probably one of the key. He came in and says, "This is a terrible poem," and he had 8 people in tears. Okay,
My dad writes good poems.
Well, he wrote about. He wrote about the ant on the ground.
Yes, I've seen that.
That one scene.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow. That's really in-depth thought, and so everybody loves it. Okay?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he wants to be more creative with his writing, and he wants to do more writing and do more writing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it goes in my class. It's just like everybody comes,
and they enjoy it.
Most of them do,
because you go back to high school and college and things like that, where it's like you have to write a paper, you have to write that, and I think it was such a burden to a lot of people, and it sounds like what you're doing is you're like unearthing this stigma of having to write to wanting to write.
When you come to class, you don't have to read. You don't have to read anything. There's not a forceful...
No homework.
No homework. If you want to write that week, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. I tell people, if writing is painful, don't do it. Don't. Find the time that the writing isn't painful, and then do it.
And then it flows.
And then it flows, and it's softer, and it comes across richer even. That those are words I can use when people are trying to write. So yes, that's basically where I'm at.
Oh, wow. So I know we're going to have Jim on again, okay? My dad said you've got a lot of great stories we're going to tell. So if somebody were to want to pick up a Jim Spencer book, and I know, this whole program just isn't to, get people to buy something, but I like promoting people who have something of value. And you have something of value. So we might as well talk about that. I mean, how do we get a hold of your book?
Most of my books are online.
Okay.
It's the 2 books it's called the 7 Night Series, SEVENKNIGHT. It has about 7 people, and every book is about lies. So the first one is called Red, White, and Black Lies.
Okay.
The second one is called Family Lies, and the third one is going to be called Collective Lies.
Okay.
So it's all about lies and how they intermingle in through life and what happens and how people lie. And
so can they get them on Amazon?
Amazon is probably the easiest and quickest and fastest. If you look around, I'm always reading somewhere, and I always have 15 to 20 books for sale, and I give you, but they're cheaper than they are on Amazon if you can find me at a reading.
Okay, so what I'm going to do too is, well, you'll see it on when this, right now it hasn't been put on the Susie Show, but I'll make sure everybody looking has Jim's contact information and how to get the books, and obviously you can always reach out to me.
And if you email me, I email you back personally. That's my big deal, is you will, and if I say, what do you think about the book? And you say, this character has a flaw, or there's something here. I look at what you say, and I try to, okay, let's do something with that flaw. Or like the first book, there's a little love affair, but people wanted a bigger love affair, so I put a little bigger love affair in the second book, and the readers loved it. Loved it.
I know people love that, don't they?
If I have never asked anyone to buy my book. I have never said, buy my book. Please buy my book.
You're not a salesperson.
I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah.
But I'm on a cruise, I'm sitting at the bar, and somebody says,
Drinking good scotch.
Drinking good scotch. Somebody will say, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm an author. And I don't say anymore. And then somebody will say, what do you write? And I'll say, I write mysteries and nothing more. And pretty soon, 8 or 10 people are asking me questions.
Uh-huh.
And then 8 or 10 people will say, I know Jim Spencer, the writer, and he told me this and this and this. And guess what? I get off a cruise, and I may sell hundreds of books. Hundreds after the cruise.
Because it's all networking.
Yes.
And just being
Yes,
yourself.
that's how I do it.
Oh.
I've been on the airplane and sell 6 books to the people around me. Wife drives wife nuts.
Oh, but so what? You love what you do.
I do.
And like I say, you're adding value back to others. And I appreciate what you do here in the community, too. I mean, people, how many do you usually get in the creative writing class?
Usually I do it twice a week, twice a day on Mondays. And it's anywhere from 6 to 14 in each class.
That's great.
So we've got quite a few people. I also do personal one-on-ones.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't have the time, so I do one-on-ones with them. I do charge for if you're under 50.
Uh-huh.
If you're over 50, I usually give you a better break. If you're over 65, it's usually free.
I'm 56, so I might fall into that in-between category. Well, listen, this has been lovely. And like I said, we're going to have Jim on again. I know that I want to ask him more questions and other things and then talk about as his books progress, we can do that too. So I just want to
If
say...
anybody wants to email you a question, get those questions and we'll
Okay,
get them
yeah.
right there next time.
Hey, that's a fabulous idea. We'll get the questions and then we'll answer them live.
Yep.
So I always hug people. Okay, of course. We'll give a big hug to Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for doing this. This
You're
was
very
delightful.
welcome. I enjoyed it.
And we'll be back at another time with Jim for sure. Thanks, everybody.